Personal growth is usually associated with various schools of psychological therapy, and one prominent figure in this field is Daniel Seligman. This is generally referred to as clinical psychology, but there exists another branch of psychology. This is known as experimental. Experimental psychology is the study of the human mind without necessarily trying to discover cures for mental ailments or pathways to personal growth. Personal growth, nonetheless, can be attained through knowledge of this field. For an example, let us take the work of Daniel Seligman. Seligman is actually most famous for his work on positive psychology, and this is in fact a school which does seek to alleviate mental and emotional problems. Before he developed that field, though, his major work was on a topic he named learned optimism. Learned optimism rests on discoveries about what he called individual style. In other words, according to Seligman, each of us has a thinking style, and some of us therefore think optimistically and some of us think pessimistically. Remarkably, he also discovered the same thing in animals. Seligman showed that different animals, he used dogs in his experiments, are more or less likely to give up when confronted with a difficult task, and that this giving up tendency and its opposite showed up as an individual characteristic of a given subject's personality. Again, remember, we're talking about dogs here. The good news for personal growth enthusiasts is that he also discovered ways you can change your personality from pessimistic to optimistic. Obviously, optimism forms a key part of any journey toward personal growth. He did not study this in dogs, though. He couldn't. This is because, although dogs are similar to humans in terms of having an optimistic or pessimistic personal style, one thing dogs don't have is language, and it is through language that a person can train themselves to be an optimist. Tied to this is the ability of a human being to work with specific and tightly defined concepts. Surely a feature of people tied to their ability, again, to use language, and one absent, therefore, we assume, in animals. The concepts he deployed in teaching people to be optimistic were the following. They were written down as adjectives in each case. Permanent versus temporary, specific versus generalized, personal versus impersonal. These 6 words formed the basis of his study of how to make someone optimistic. In short, a pessimistic person interpreted negative events as permanent, generalized, and personal, and interpreted positive events as temporary, specific to that situation, not personally related to themselves. On the other hand, an optimistic person interpreted negative events as temporary, specific to the situation, and not generalizable, and interpreted positive events as permanent, generalizable, and specific to their own character. In an effort to promote personal growth in everyday life, Seligman then turned his attention to how people can use the insights he'd uncovered about learned optimism, and indeed naturally occurring optimism, to improve their own outlooks. He deployed the work of Albert Ellis to do this.